Grace and peace to you. I'm Reverend Diane Rue, pleased to serve this congregation of St. Paul's United Methodist Church here in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm pleased to introduce to you our church leaders who will inform you about decisions that they've made to this point about restarting in-person worship at St. Paul's.
When the pandemic changed our world a year ago, difficult decisions needed to be made quickly with the information that was available at the time. A protocol team was established by Church Council from church leaders to make periodic recommendations to the Church Council and SPRC, as well as to be available to Reverend Diane and staff as questions arose. The guiding principle was, in what ways can we ensure that our ministries are available to the greatest number of God's people during this pandemic, while prioritizing life and health safety? I am privileged to be part of the protocol team, along with Dr. Robert Stevens, Ken Gratz, Deb Korotev, Dave Atkins, Paul Kendall, Lisa Chernosky, Tom Wakefield, and Reverend Diane Rue. Janet Stevens serves as a recording secretary. Reverend Diane requested the team meet on February 9th, 2021 to assess the current situation and put together a recommendation for the Council and SPRC on the path forward. We used the following resources that we have provided to you here as well. Holding Our Plans Loosely, Returning to Church 2.0, a January 2021 publication from the Wisconsin Council of Churches. How to Manage Expectations, a February 8th, 2021 article by Sarai Rice from the Congregational Consulting Group. And Brown County Statistics. Paul Kendall served as facilitator and described that the purpose of the meeting was to define the criteria to make a safe decision on reopening the sanctuary for in-person worship. Activities that have worked well on Zoom since the pandemic began, such as meetings and education, will continue in that format for now. A decision regarding outside groups using the building will be one of the last to be made. The focus was on what metrics to follow to safely open the church building for in-person worship and how to communicate that to the congregation. We affirm prioritizing protecting the life and health of our neighbors and taking seriously the church's role as a community leader, as referenced in the Wisconsin Council of Churches publications entitled Holding Our Plans Loosely, Returning to Church 2.0. The publication sets up this chart with 3 categories: unsafe to gather, make it safer, and safest, and used several metrics to determine those categories. Rob Stevens shared his understanding of the information from a medical perspective. The recommendation is a 2-step approach. First, watching vaccine rates, and then confirming that the cases per 100,000 and positive tests decline. Rob warned that it's a fluid situation with new strains developing. The cases per 100,000 and positive test rates can confirm that the current vaccines are working. Looking at the chart, unsafe together is vaccine rates less than 50%, a viral transmission rate of cases of greater than 10 per 100,000, and positive tests in excess of 10%. The Make It Safer category is vaccine rates between 50 and 70%, with viral transmission of cases of 5 to 10 per 100,000, and positive tests of less than 10%. The safest is vaccine rates between 70 and 85%, viral transmission cases less than 1 per 100,000, and positive tests less than 5%. A similar chart provides modifications of events to be in place when we begin gathering in physical space again. We can expect these modifications to continue for a significant amount of time. Unsafe is all at once, unmasked, no distancing, full capacity, and the assembly singing and eating together. Make It Safer is making face masks mandatory with physical distancing, a low-touch environment, having it outdoors or with an increased air exchange, shortening the time of service, singing to be done by worship leaders only, focus on sanitizing high-touch surfaces, and sign-in and attendance lists. And then finally, the safest is all of the Make It Safer category, plus no singing or minimizing singing, with a hybrid phase-in plan, waiting 1 month between phases, and having a fallback plan for outbreaks, and a communication plan and team responsibility.
After a thorough discussion in a joint meeting of our church council, staff parish committee, and protocol team on February 23rd, it was decided that St. Paul's leadership was most comfortable with reopening for in-person worship when the vaccination rates in Brown County are at the higher end of the Make It Safer category, near to or above a 70% vaccination rate. It was also agreed that we would follow the Make It Safer category for event modifications. All 18 members present voted in favor.
As your leaders at St. Paul's, we are committed to answering whatever questions you may have that we are able to as they arise. We will continue to do so as we move through this process. So here are a few questions and answers to begin with. The first question is, when are we likely to meet our Make It Safer criteria so that we can resume in-house worship? The honest answer is we don't know exactly, but our leadership will be doing three things. First, we will monitor the three criteria: vaccination rates, cases per 100,000, and positive test rates. Second, we will meet at least every 4 to 6 weeks, and more often if the numbers and trends indicate that we should. And third, we will communicate a plan for ministry by season. So right now we are in the Lent and Easter season, then we'll have the post-Easter season, and then summer. And we will communicate any changes to our plan for each new season. This is necessary to allow staff and leaders to plan to provide ministry. Whether online, in-house, or outdoors, ministry does not just happen without weeks of work and planning. Our next question is, why are some other churches meeting in person while we are not? During this pandemic, churches have been given great freedom about how they will follow public health guidelines. Congregations and denominations all make decisions differently. In some instances, the pastor alone may decide, or there may be a theological basis for the difference, as with the Catholic Church, where Mass with communion is the center of weekly worship and cannot be experienced online. Some congregations follow school district decisions. Some congregations have no options for online worship. At the beginning of this pandemic, Reverend Diane met with conference, health, and congregational leaders and asked for leadership support in the decision to pause in-house ministries and move online. The timeline and protocols for return to in-house worship will be decided by your elected lay leaders. Many people are probably wondering, what might initial Sunday morning services look like when we return? Well, we might have a single service at 9 a.m. live streamed for our online community. According to our Make It Safer criteria, the service would be a bit shorter and would contain some pre-taped portions so that we could include musicians and other participants unable to be in-house. Face coverings, social distancing, a low-touch environment, and attendance sign-ins will be required. Singing would be by worship leaders only. Again, this is in line with our Make It Safer criteria. Another question is, what about children's ministries and Sunday school? Our education team, primarily made up of parents and grandparents of our Sunday school children, has been phenomenal with regards to working with Reverend Diane and staff to understand the realities and needs of our families. We have sought to plan faithful, creative ministries accordingly. This effort will continue and more opportunities will arise as the weather gets warmer. We anticipate a more normal volunteer-staffed Sunday school in the fall. When the weather gets nice, if we haven't met our metrics for opening, can we just meet in person outdoors? One of the reasons for planning by seasons at a time is that whether in building, online, or in homes, it takes staff and volunteers time to make ministries happen. If leadership determines that our building will be closed throughout the summer, staff will plan outdoor worship and activities as needed.
So what if these new variants hit and numbers get worse? Or what if we get stuck at a percentage below 70% because people are not being vaccinated? Or what if something else that we're not thinking about right now because we don't know it right now? Well, regardless of conditions, regular monitoring, meeting, and communicating by leadership will take place. We will follow Wisconsin numbers, but we will focus primarily on Brown County numbers so as to best understand our local situation. Reassessments will be made as needed. Why don't we just do both in-person and virtual services? We will, and we must. As a congregation faithful to our mission of planting faith, nurturing disciples, growing in witness and service, we must refrain from a desire to go back to what it used to be normal. We have learned so much about how to reach those beyond the walls of our building, and we must continue to do just that. Doing both kinds of worship simultaneously will take planning, will take additional sound and video equipment. We do have staff and teams already working on these things. It will also require some additional and differently trained and equipped volunteers, but we will grow in our mission and our ministry as God leads us in new ways. So if smaller groups are supposed to be safest, why not have committee meetings and classes in person? Well, what has been working well online will continue online. It's still the safest. We must remember that every time a space is used, deep cleaning is required by staff members. But we do want to voice a note of possible exception. While some of us have been isolated with family or colleagues or pods of friends, some of our congregation has not had this privilege. As more individuals become fully vaccinated, there may be a request or a need for small prayer and support groups to be in-house. If this arises, safety protocols and oversight could be established by our staff and the protocol team. So what about social gatherings and outside groups like the Scouts and others? Use of the building by outside groups will likely be one of the last decisions made. The protocols and oversight needed will need to be determined and communicated to each group at the time permission is granted. Basically, the earlier the use is permitted, the more complicated the protocols and oversight will need to be. Because of the safety risks involved, social gatherings and meals will be one of the last types of gatherings to return. What about special services? Midweek prayer, Holy Communion, baptisms, funerals? Our midweek communion and prayer services will continue through the season of Lent and possibly beyond. Pre-packaged communion elements are utilized and will be used in Sunday services for the foreseeable future. Baptisms can take place in a variety of ways, like being taped to the sanctuary or held in an outside service, based on family preferences. Funerals are currently being done on a limited basis, considering the family's desires and taking into consideration safety protocols. The ability to offer videotaping of the funerals and posting for family and friends has been of extreme comfort to those who are grieving in these days. All building use of any kind will require a cleaning protocol.
I'm Tom Wakefield, and as chair of our Staff Parish Relations Committee, I want to offer a few concluding remarks. We all miss the things we took for granted just a year ago. Gathering to worship together in our beautiful sanctuary, hugging and shaking hands, singing hymns together, and being led by our choir in worship, sharing delicious treats at fellowship time, and hearing the laughter of our children on their way to Sunday school. Unfortunately, this very contagious and sometimes deadly virus spreads through close contact. People of faith's best intentions in gathering together can cause unintended harm. However, we have also been blessed. Thanks to our dedicated staff and volunteers, we are sharing quality online weekly worship services and other special messages with the St. Paul congregation and many others beyond our membership. We have made an effort to get members online so that they can enjoy these resources. And when that is not possible, staff makes sure they remain connected through mailings and phone calls. Education classes have moved to online platforms and expanded beyond our congregation. Our musicians have been created, and many more people have enjoyed Vashni's inspired playing on our wonderful pipe organ. Our children and families have pen pals from our congregation and are connected and engaged in creative ministries at home and online. Members and friends have safely found solace in our beautiful sanctuary at the Wednesday prayer and communion services. And finally, most importantly, I think we have all learned how each of us plays an important role in being the body of Christ to and for one another. Again, we have been blessed in many ways. As indicated earlier, we, as your leaders, will continue to monitor vaccination and infection rates in our community. We will continue to meet as a protocol team, and we will communicate our ministry plans as we move forward. Please continue to pray for our staff and our leaders, pray for one another, and pray for our world as we continually seek to live as God's faithful people.
It has been a real privilege to serve on the protocol team during the past year. The faith community at St. Paul's is so special to me and my family, and I appreciate the efforts taken to keep everyone safe. As a retired physician, I'm very excited about the development of safe and effective vaccines. We are so close to returning to more normal lives. I highly encourage you all to get the vaccine, no matter which one, when your turn arrives. We are now in a race to get as many people vaccinated as possible before the more contagious variants of the virus start driving infection rates back up. I'm still waiting for my turn, but I'm so relieved that some members of my family have already been vaccinated. The virus and the vaccines are still very new, so I understand that you may have questions about them. Be sure to talk to your healthcare provider about any concerns you might have. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and the Wisconsin Department of Health Services also have good information on their websites. A link to the DHS site, which is updated daily to track the vaccination rate for Wisconsin residents, as well as for Brown County. There is also a link to a new map set up by the DHS with information on vaccine providers throughout the state. You don't have to do this alone, and St. Paul's is here to help. If you need help finding out how you can get the vaccine, want to talk to someone who has already received it, or have some questions for me about the vaccine or the virus, please contact the church office. We will put you in touch with someone who can help. Resources will also be posted on the St. Paul's website as they become available, so please watch for them. I look forward to the time when we can safely worship together again.